Congressman Steve King from Iowa. He endorsed Ted Cruz for president and serves as his campaign's national co-chair. Congressman, thanks so much for being here.
Good morning, and thanks a lot for having me on this nice brisk morning here.
Where is your coat, sir? All right, let's talk.
Well, I'll put it on when I need it, Allison.
I know, you guys, you Iowans, I've seen this in action. You're so hardy, you refuse to even wear your coats. Let's talk about the Des Moines Register front page. Rough night for Ted Cruz. Basically, they are saying that he became a punching bag for everyone else. In the absence of Donald Trump, people were able to go after him for his sometimes shifting positions. What do you think about that?
Well, I had predicted in some of the interviews yesterday before the debate that all guns would be aimed at Ted Cruz. It is a game of political king of the hill, and it was clear that Ted Cruz is on top of the hill, but everybody didn't turn their guns on Ted Cruz. You did, and I noticed that Chris Christie declined that opportunity on at least one occasion. So I was surprised. It was news to me when I saw the headline in the Des Moines Register. Not the first time that's happened, though, Allison.
Well, Marco Rubio and Rand Paul both went after Ted Cruz for what they say is his shifting position on amnesty for illegal immigrants. So listen to this moment.
What is particularly insulting, though, is that he is the king of saying, oh, you're for amnesty. Everybody's for amnesty except for Ted Cruz. But it's a falseness, and that's an authenticity problem, that everybody he knows is not as perfect as him because we're all for amnesty.
This is the lie that Ted's campaign is built on, and Rand touched upon it. That he's the most conservative guy and everyone else is a rhino. The truth is, Ted, throughout this campaign, you've been willing to say or do anything in order to get votes. Ted, you worked for George W. Bush's campaigns. And then in the committee, you said, I want to bring people out of the shadows. Now you want to trump Trump on immigration.
What about that, Congressman? Wasn't Ted Cruz at one time for a path towards legalization?
No, I do not say that he would be. I'm listening to this dialogue here, and I'm wondering how Marco Rubio can say what he's saying. I've watched as he's gone through the transformation from a very strong anti-amnesty, rule of law, border security candidate for the United States Senate to the leader of the Gang of Eight bill. And I've watched as Ted Cruz has come into Congress at the same time, essentially, as Marco Rubio, and I've seen Ted Cruz step up every time and stand on the right square on the amnesty issue. It's funny also that I remember listening carefully to some speeches of Rand Paul on immigration, wanting and pleading internally that he could at least say, I don't want to legalize people that are in America illegally. It always was couched. It always was calculated. He never was definitive, and Ted Cruz always was. But that was a poison pill amendment. I've argued them before, and you're trying to tease the Democrats and the other side, your opposition, into voting for your amendment. That's what Ted Cruz was doing. He was dangling information out there saying, I want this bill to pass. If you vote for my amendment, the bill will pass. And it's just giving them bait so they'll take the bait and swallow the hook.
I understand, Congressman, that's what he says now. But when you listen to his words at that time, where he was making the case, it didn't sound like a poison pill. It didn't sound like he was doing it with irony. He said, I really want this to pass. They need to come out of the shadows.
But I have made these kind of debates in the past myself on that issue and different issues. I know what the tone of that is like. You have to turn it up in that fashion and make it sound as genuine as possible, and that's the temptation. Then how do they argue against that? Then they have to come back and say, well, you really don't want this bill to pass. But they didn't do that. They didn't challenge him on that. And Ted Cruz his record has been clearer. And by the way, I mean, you'll know this immigration policy is signed off on by myself and Jeff Sessions. Jeff Sessions voted with Ted Cruz every time. So did Chuck Grassley, so did Mike Lee. I think that says where things were on that. And I had no concern back then about that amendment being offered when I was watching this drama in the Judiciary Committee in the United States Senate.
As you know, there's another issue that may hurt Ted Cruz, and that's what's going on with ethanol. Your governor, Governor Terry Branstad, has said that he believes that Ted Cruz should be defeated and that he would be very damaging to Iowa. What does your governor know about Ted Cruz that you don't feel?
Nothing. There's a lot of things that he has said that don't hold up, and a lot of that doesn't hold up has been pushed out by his son, who was being well paid since November to make allegations against Ted Cruz, to misrepresent Ted Cruz's record on ethanol. And at a certain point, they understood that Cruz's bill that phases down the renewable fuels standard, they acted like that was a surprise that they had just learned that. filed that March 27th, 2014. And so there'd been a lot of misrepresenting this going on. They dug in. They raised money in the summertime. They dug in. Once they decided to deliver their negative message, they changed their flyer and they moved the candidates around and only left Rand Paul down on the bottom of the list of the bad category, moved the people that were in the needs work category up to the good on ethanol, and turned all their targets on Ted Cruz. That looks to me like that was set up to attack Ted Cruz in the first place. And by the way, a lot of this benefits Donald Trump. So it looks like the governor did a de facto endorsement of Donald Trump by attacking Ted Cruz.
In our last few seconds, Congressman, what did you think of Donald Trump skipping the debate?
Well, I thought of Michelle Bachmann skipping the debate that Donald Trump moderated 4 years ago, and what Donald Trump thought of that, which was he claimed that was one of the reasons she didn't do well here in the caucus 4 years ago. And so I think Iowans with high undecided rates, maybe in the 40% or so category, were waiting for that debate between Cruz and Trump. They wanted to make their decisions. They didn't get to see that confrontation between the two, and I think that's going to help Ted Cruz, and I think it'll help him a lot on Monday night.
Okay, it'll be very interesting to see what happens on Monday. We'll see you out there, Congressman Steve King. Thanks so much for being on New Day.
Thanks, Allison.
Let's get